This town ain't got no nightclub. We don't need the neon light. Girl, I got that 87 gassed up, 30 early out there in the drive. Got you a bullet and a koozie, keep it ice cold. You take a sip before we get gone. Looking at you with your hand out the window. I'm turning right while you're turning me on. Riding roads that don't nobody go down. A little jet through the countryside. It's 38's making the world go round. I hit a curve just to make you stop. All night it's a flashing yellow. Only thing that I want is your kiss. Loving nothing to do with you, baby. Just riding roads on a night like this. Out there where the moon hits the water, out there where your lips and mine. I don't know where we are, cause somebody stole the street signs. I'll take the sweet time. Cause I could go on forever, but you didn't ride a shotgun. I'm free, so probably making plans, baby. Baby, we already got one. Riding roads that don't nobody go down. Little jet through the countryside. It's 38's making the world go round. I hit a curve just to make you stop. All night it's a flashing yellow. Only thing that I want is your kiss. Loving nothing to do with you, baby. Just riding roads on a night like this. Just riding roads on a night like this. I got one hand on the wheel and I got the other trying to cross the line. Yeah, the way you make me feel, I wanna keep it rolling till the sun rise. Riding roads that don't nobody go down. Little jet through the countryside. It's 38's making the world go round. I hit a curve just to make you stop. All night it's a flashing yellow. Only thing that I want is your kiss. Loving nothing to do with you, baby. Just riding roads on a night like this. Just riding roads on a night like this.
All right, what's going on, Conscious Crew? We are in the building. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Thursday. I'm not going to have my guest here long, so we're going to have to get straight into the fizzle. Before we do so, go ahead and thumbs up the video until it's absolutely stuck. You guys know that thumbing up the video not only helps with YouTube's algorithm, but more importantly, it triggers up YouTube's notification system. So when you are thumbing up the video, you are literally knocking on the digital door of another Conscious Crew member and telling them to get their black asses into the sanctuary. Also, make sure that you guys are, in fact, having your notifications set to all so that you never miss a day or hour. And last but not least, please share the stream out to whatever it is you have digital community, whether that be your YouTube community wall, your Snapchat, your MySpace, the dark side of Twitter, Tumblr, or your personal OF. I don't really give no types of damn where you in fact lay the link. Just let them whores know that we're loud, live, and in color. And last, but definitely not last, is if you enjoy everything that the King does here, make sure that you guys donate to the platform at Cash App, $Consciouztv, and or paypal.me/ConsciouzTV. All donation information and social media handles will be in the description box below. And with no further ado, let's go ahead and simply push on through.
I know a place where you can recharge your soul.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
And in the midst of brokenness, he gon' see your asshole.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
You gon' heal, you gon' laugh and catch a little shade.
Ooh, girl.
Y'all know he be slaying, y'all better stop playing. Come hear what he's saying.
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right, what is going on, Conscious Crew? So I don't know what's going on with YouTube. I told you guys YouTube have made massive changes to the platform. Every content creator that I know is experiencing blows to their live streams, to their viewership, etc. So these YouTube Illuminati games, you know, we don't have no control over. I don't know what's going on with YouTube, but it's a mess right now, which is why we will be colonizing other platforms as well, aside from YouTube, so that we don't have to have all of our eggs in one basket, because YouTube do a lot of weird shit, and then they don't inform their content creators, and, you know, they pretty much have us all by the balls, always, all the time. I think that YouTube is taking some financial blows right now themselves, and they are slowing down viewership for content creators so that they don't have to pay content creators out the way that content creators are being and have been paid out before all of this tariff business, before all of this inflation business, etc. So I think that YouTube itself is sabotaging its content creators, girl. Glad I'm catching a live. Yes. I have a special guest with me, which is one of my dear friends, D-Rock, who's in the building. And with no further ado, hi, D-Rock. D-Rock is probably moving all type of shit around, y'all.
No, I had to come off of mute, but yeah, hey everybody, how's everyone doing? Hope everybody's doing fine.
Yes, hope you are doing wonderful as well. And we were having a private discussion that I decided would make for a great live stream discussion. I'm like, we should talk about this live. So now here we are.
Absolutely.
Talking about this live. Now, as a little starter-upper, I guess we can get into some of the things that are going on right now when it comes to religion and Christianity. There's been a shift, especially in Western Christianity, which is fascinating. I'm going to pull up 2 articles here. I'm not going to really read the articles because we are on limited time, but just as a little one too, as you guys can see here, there's been some boost in terms of Gen Z men, and particularly headed back toward the alleged House of God, girl. Okay, which I'm not surprised by. I don't know if you're surprised by this, D-Rock, but considering what's happening politically and the fact that everybody's lives is upside down and inflation is up and cost of living is up and unemployment is through the freaking roof and there's just one disaster after the other, I'm not surprised that there are some people who might be looking for some solace and looking for some comfort at a time like this. So apparently there is a small boost of Gen Z men who are headed back to the old sanctuary. However, as a whole, the church is taking a massive blow right now in current America. 15,000 churches alone could close this year amid religious shift in the country. Okay, the U.S. could see unprecedented 15,000 churches shut their doors this year, far more than the few thousand expected to open, according to denominational reports and church consultants. The unprecedented contraction expected to continue over the next decade risk leaving gaps in communities nationwide, particularly rural ones, where churches often are crucial providers of food aid, childcare, and disaster relief. The decline of traditional brick and mortar churches comes as a record number of Americans, 29%, are identified as religiously unaffiliated, and as 62% identify as Christians, down from 78% in 2007, according to the Pew Research Center. At the same time, mostly non-denominational megachurches and evangelical Christianity in general are an increasing influence on American life, driven by charismatic leaders, sympathetic politicians, and social media. These colliding trends have shaken the nation's longtime religious footing. There are fewer and fewer communities built around local churches, but rising pressure from conservative citizens and government officials to inject more religion into public school settings and institutions. The record number of churches closing forecast this year stem from struggles many churches face, including retaining full-time pastors, said Thom Rainer, a former president of Lifeway Christian Resources, an entity of the Southern Baptist Convention that provides resources for churches. Okay, so there's a lot going on as it relates to the church. There is a massive shift right now. We are seeing a lot of fundamental, extreme evangelical right-leaning Christianity being peddled through our government and our political institution. We and you particularly were talking about the idea of God and whether God exists and how belief or a lack of belief in God shapes our lives and shapes the way we show up and who we are, etc. Do you want to get a bit into what we were discussing in that manner?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were talking earlier about this whole, and excuse me, I don't remember exactly how we got on the conversation, but definitely this
Because you had mentioned that you are kind of in a
oh yes, okay.
mhm,
Yeah, I remember
an
now.
agnostic place right now.
Right. Kind of in a questioning, yeah, pretty much to put simply an agnostic
Yeah.
place. And it may help to just provide a little context or background. I am pretty much, I was born in the church, not literally, but I might as well have been, parents Christian, um, Christian household, extended family were Christians. There were ministers in my family. I grew up in the Pentecostal denomination, so I'm familiar with all the pretty much the drama and theatrics that come along with that. But I remember having shut-ins. I was a small kid, and I remember shutting in the church. I remember all night prayers, fasting, all of that. I literally watched my mother, for instance, who was she had once been a strung out drug addict, and but she became I don't want to say not zealot because there's a negative connotation that comes with the word zealot, but
A
but
devout, a devout
devout,
Christian.
yes, a devout Christian, yes. So I literally watched her transformation right before my eyes, and I can literally. My mom just passed last year, and
Rest
I
in peace.
am 43 right now, and I can literally count on probably two hands the times my mom cursed in my entire life. And so I watched people like live the life that they claim. They were real about it. And but with that said, and even me myself, even out of all of my siblings, I was that weird kid who was kind of like instead of like being a typical boy, into sports and all that kind of stuff. I was the one who watched Christian television like 24/7. I read the Bible. I was always drawing pictures of Jesus. So I was serious about my faith. Um, and I know pretty much all the gospel artists or the contemporary Christian artists you can name. I probably know about them. Um, and so I started questioning, like really questioning my faith, probably maybe 15 years ago or so.
Mm.
And it really happened, because I was seeking, and I heard this because I follow a lot of atheist channels, just as I follow a lot of Christian channels.
Mhm.
And I only really listen to atheists because they really are the more cerebral people. So they like all of the questions that Christians really have in the back of their mind, but are afraid to ask or are told that you're not supposed to ask. That's what the atheists are there for. They
They're doing it out loud.
right. They're saying it out loud. And my only separation point, reason why I don't consider myself an atheist, is because I pretty much hear a lot of atheists say that there is no God at all. Like
What?
there is no spirit world. There is no like
Mhm.
none of that. You like they pretty much there's no intelligence. There's nothingness. Just when you die, there's just absolute complete
Oblivion,
nothingness. Oblivion. Yes.
annihilation. Hmm.
Annihilationist. Yeah. And to me, that is I wouldn't even call it ignorant. I just call that stupid. It's just dumb to me. And I think it's willful ignorance, because you can literally, because those same people will get up every day at the same time, go through the same routine. Um, they're very intelligent people. So, like, if you really thought that nothing mattered, then why don't you just stay in bed just all day? Just don't go to work. Like, don't live your life. Don't do anything. And so,
Hold on, hold on, hold on.
go
If
ahead.
you don't believe in God, is what you're saying?
Right. If you believe that nothing matters, like there's nothing. Um, I,
Well, I
mhm,
think that sometimes people take what atheists mean by that out of context. Like what
mhm.
they mean is that nothing matters beyond what's all in the right now. So, like, yeah,
Yeah,
things
yeah,
do matter to atheists, like their family, their children, their community, their loved ones, their spouses. They have things that they're connected to and that they love. They just don't adhere to this idea that you need a God in order to have meaning in life because a love is enough to enjoy life. Like there's lots of emotions to be felt and experiences to be had and meaning that can be derived from life aside from a religious notion of God, which I agree with.
And so, which part do you agree with, if I may ask?
That life can still be worth living without a belief in God.
Yeah. And see, that's where. So that is my journey right now because it's kind of like I think it's a sweet and sour. It's kind of like so I was raised in the faith, and I've heard other like even preachers' kids. I've heard other people say this. It seems more difficult, more complicated to
Mm.
deconstruct when you were raised in it, like when you were just born and raised in, you were just
God, God,
given
God,
faith.
God, 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 God,
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
God,
yeah,
God,
yeah.
God, God, God. Mhm.
It's almost like being given hand-me-down clothes. Almost, it's like you were handed God, like so you didn't find Him for yourself, and so it's all you know. And so when you come to a place in your life is where okay, you're away from all of these people. You're by yourself now. So you're having to come to terms with what you actually believe, and that's real challenging. Uh, like okay, let me just use practical examples. Like my mother, who I mentioned earlier, for instance. Okay, she wasn't indoctrinated. You know, she pretty much lived her life the way she wanted to. But she believed when she was a child, like just like I was, you know, she was that person in her family, like who she used to go out and sit on the back porch and just look up at the stars, and she just always knew there was a God. There was something in her that really pulled her toward God's, and no matter how wild she got, you know, in her adult life, it brought her back. Whatever that belief, wherever it came from, it brought her back, but her faith was solid, because it was her experience that really brought that solidity.
Mm-hmm.
But me, on the other hand, but my mom was not raised in she was raised with good morals and values, and she was told that there was a God, and she was taken to church at times. But the difference with me is that I was in church every Sunday. I was in Sunday school, like it's all we knew, and so I like, and even though I had that in me, where I had this pull, this attraction toward the bigger picture and the supreme intelligence, this whoever, I just knew to call it God.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the same time, I was indoctrinated. I was heavily indoctrinated, and so it's hard for me to separate the doctrine from the actual person of God. And where my agnosticism comes in is that where I'm at the place of wondering if there even is really a God to begin with, is that when I look in retrospect, I look back throughout my whole life, um, and not just my life as far as what I can touch, but also what I've observed, all of the spiritual leaders who I've followed,
Yeah.
what's going on in the world, what has gone on in the world, and what's going on now in religion and spirituality, and just all of the contradictions. It's kind of like, and I always use this example. If you went to an art museum and you're looking at all the beautiful art on the wall,
Me.
and yeah, yeah, you're looking at these masterpieces, and so, and you're just like, wow. And then there's something in you that's gonna want you're gonna want to get closer and closer to that picture. And then so, but you notice the closer you get to it, the less it starts to look like a masterpiece. And you start seeing the cracks, the imperfections. There's paint missing here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you just start seeing you just start seeing the imperfections in it. And that's not a perfect example, but it's the best one I could come up with. But to give you a visual. But the closer, there was a time. I mean, even in college, I was part of the Christian club. Um, but I was the one. I was the one who people didn't like, because I would ask questions that you weren't supposed to ask,
Mm-hmm.
and I would challenge things. I would challenge people, not so much people, but I would challenge what they were saying. And so, yeah, people thought I was a smart aleck. They didn't like me. Oh, that's the one. He's always just being deep, and all of that. And it wasn't really me trying to be deep. I was just like, are y'all not questioning this stuff? Do y'all not think about this stuff? Like, am I just, or am I like, am I the only one saying it out loud? And and at that point, at that point in my life, I was getting closer, and I was trying to get closer to God. And so, I was reading my Bible like I never had before. I was praying more than I ever had before, and I even had, I won't call them spiritual experiences because I don't want to attach anything to them, but I had otherworldly experiences, like where I would be woken up. I would wake up at the same time every morning, just be wide awake. I start seeing repeating numbers, repeating patterns of numbers. I would hear a preacher on television, and he would say something that was revelatory to me. I was like, and every time that would happen, like clockwork, my eyes would naturally go over to the clock, and then it would be 11:11 or 1:11 or 1:33 or something like that.
Synchronicities.
Synchronicity, yeah. And this was before I heard anything about it. Like, I had never heard anything about it. I just started noticing, like, why does this keep happening? There's something to this. And then, if anyone here remembers, there was a movie that came out called 11:11. That's the title of the movie. And I was part of the Christian club then, and I asked them. No, I heard one of the students ask, "Hey, did y'all hear about this movie?" And then one of the other students said, "Oh, my pastor said do not go see that movie," and it was a horror movie. I looked it up, and it was a horror film. I never watched the movie, but I watched the trailer, and the trailer let me know that it literally said there are thousands. I don't know if they said thousands or millions. Excuse me, of people all over the world are seeing 11/11. And I said, "Wow." I knew there was something to it, but I didn't know so many people were experiencing this. And then literally on November 11, 2011, I woke up and I was writing a book about, and it was about spirituality. And then went to the computer to work more on my book. And when I flipped it open, I literally saw 11/11/11 on Google. It said today is 11/11/11. I looked down at the time on the computer. It was 11:11 a.m. And I literally put that in my book that I was writing at the moment it happened. And so things like that. And there was a whole lot of other stuff. I mean, being
Mhm.
sleeping in the room by myself, being slapped on my foot, and then woken up and looking at the clock, and the dog barking. There was, so they say dogs, can sense spirits. So, and I've literally seen a spirit. I saw a spirit with my own eyes when I was a kid. And it wasn't just me. That's how I know I wasn't hallucinating, because somebody woke me up and told me to come in the living room, or in the dining room, excuse me. There was a man in the dining room. And so there were three of us literally standing there looking at this spirit, this figure. And so I know spirits exist. You cannot tell me. Nobody can tell me that.
Mhm.
Um, but as far as that doesn't tell me anything about God. It does not. It just says that there are other worldly beings out there. Just like the Bible, the Bible is supposed to, as Christians would say, that everything's in the Bible. Everything you need to know is in the Bible. That's who God is. God is His Word. But then the Muslims will tell you the same thing about the Quran. And then there are the Jews will tell you the same thing about their holy book. And so, but there are blatant contradictions in each of those books. And so, because I've seen this, not, and I always hear people say this, so let me go ahead and address this. Because whenever you say, "I saw so many spiritual leaders fall," they'll say, "Well, you weren't supposed to be watching. You weren't supposed to be looking at them anyway. It's supposed to be all about God. You
Mhm.
weren't supposed to be, that you weren't supposed to be following them." And that itself in a contradiction, because those leaders will literally tell you, "Believe the prophet, and so shall you prosper." That's in the Bible. I mean, that's a passage in the Bible. It says that,
You know that.
"Believe the prophet,
I
and so
believe.
shall you prosper." What'd you say?
I said, but you do know that believing in the prophet's word or instructions or prophecy is very different from the notion to follow the prophet.
That's true. But Paul also said, "Follow me." And then he did say the
And
caveat.
he's
He said,
also completely challenged by a lot of Christian scholars who said that, who argue that Paul was wrong in saying that, because Christ never told his followers to follow anybody aside from to follow him, if anybody.
well, I was going to finish that. He said, "Follow me as I follow Christ." So he did add something to that. He said, "Follow
Yeah,
me as I follow Christ."
he softened it, but he was wrong as a whole. It shouldn't have been no follow him with any stipulation on it. Just follow Christ. Don't worry about following me. Follow Christ. I'm following Christ. You follow Christ, but don't follow me, because baby, I'm a man. I'm a I am part divine, part mortal. So definitely don't follow me, but I'm following Christ. So follow
Yeah, and then
Christ.
there's conversations about the meaning in the word as, like the original translation. What did that mean? So I've heard scholars say that what he meant was, "Follow me while I follow Christ." But basically, the moment I stop following Christ, then stop following me. So that's what I understand about it. But at the same time, we got into that whole conversation, but you can
Because
go into
here's
all
the
kinds of
whole thing,
rabbit
because
trails.
this is
Yeah.
what us both were saying in some sense, is that all Christians are out of order, all believers are out of order when you literally have the author or the central figure of Christianity literally saying, "Follow me, because me and God are one. Me and the Father are one." So if you find yourself solely as a believer following exclusively behind a person, you're misleading yourself, because that's not even in the scriptures. And if you are in the scriptures, and if you are prioritizing the teachings of Christ, actually prioritizing it, not just making it another set of experience, another set of wisdoms alongside all these other wisdoms, but you actually have pedestalized Christ. You've actually pedestalized Christ's teachings, Christ's demonstrations. Then why are you out of whack at all? Because if you were literally following who's supposed to be your actual leader, you really wouldn't, like a lot of people wouldn't have gotten into this level of church hurt and misinformation. And so you have a lot of believers who are following man and then upset with God. And you're having a lot of people who are willfully putting their salvation in the hands of other individuals. When Christ, I mean, even the scriptures establish, and I guess we're talking exclusively about Christianity here, that that's an experience and a resolve that's literally between a person and their creator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Not
and I
between
understand.
us and Paul, not us and Moses, not us and Deacon Mark, not us and
Mm-hmm.
Deacon uh 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 Mary, a prophetess Mary Magdalene, but us and God, salvation.
Yeah, and I understand that part. And now my situation wasn't church hurt. I didn't stop believing in God or questioning God because I was hurt in the church. Because I was hurt in the church. I was hurt in the church, but I still kept believing in God and following God. I never even made a distinction between those two things. My whole thing was observation. It was things I was seeing and noticing, and I just kept seeing contradiction after contradiction from the way people were living to the words in the Bible itself, and it's just too much to go into. But to sum it up, make it plain and simple, it just wasn't adding up. Like my faith, the Bible, religion, it just was not adding up. And I knew this was universal because all of these atheists I would listen to, they were all saying what I had observed. They were calling it out. They didn't know me, I didn't know them, but everywhere, like atheists, they didn't know each other, but they were saying the same things. And I said, yeah, I did question that. I did wonder about that. I did that never did make sense to me. And so it's like and then now lately I started looking at the fact that now this may sound silly, it may sound, but it's not just this. It's that this on top of so many other things. But somebody brought up the fact that why are there never, because again, I grew up in a Pentecostal church and we familiar with speaking in tongues, we're familiar with miracles and deliverance and demon casting out, all of that stuff. Um, why has no limbs ever grown back? Why have no one's limbs ever grown back? And we can say that there are some cases in the world, but those are anecdotal. But you've never seen them. Like I've never seen any
All
video. I've
that.
never seen any documentation of anyone's limbs growing back. The these, no matter how holy or powerful these ministers are supposed to be, no matter how much they pray and fast, I've never seen him raise anybody from the dead. I've never seen anybody walk on water. Everything, literally everything Jesus did in the Bible.
But
I've
isn't that
never
the gag
seen
as well?
any. I've never seen
Hold on,
any
hold on, hold on.
Christian
Let's
do
hold on,
any
sorry.
of those
Isn't
things.
that the gag about kind of the way you're trying to follow this out as well? Is that you're talking about there's no photographic evidence, but there's no evidence that anything that happened in the Bible actually happened either. But you're using that as a way to measure. I don't even know what you're using it to measure it for, because on one hand, I don't know whether it's about debunking the supernatural because you're talking about the going to limbs, or whether you're debunking the existence of God because that's what the initial topic is. But in either instance, you're also referring to a book that is a book of claims, just like all the anecdotal experiences that you say are of people growing back their limbs and experiencing miraculous healing, which, yes, are things that still do happen today and even happen in America.
Yeah, I've heard many people say those things happen, but I'm just saying I've never seen them. I've never seen them, and I've
I
been
mean,
in
but
church all of my
also,
life in different
but my
churches in
point is
different
that,
states. I've,
but my
I've
point is that you're also using the Bible, which is not a receipt of God, and there is no receipt. Like, there's no proof of a grand exodus out of Egypt. There's no proof of Moses parting the Red Sea. There's no proof of Jesus resurrecting after 3 days. There's barely even proof that he lived, yet alone resurrected. Um,
I agree.
I mean, so you're talking. I mean, so like what you're using as a reference for truth and fact isn't even a factual document itself.
I think I think what how I should say it is I do not believe in the God of the Bible. That's what I'm questioning, the God of the Bible. Because why I even call myself agnostic is because I still believe agnostics still believe there is something. Like I still believe there is a supreme intelligence. I just do not know or believe. I don't believe it. I don't believe that it's the God of the Bible. I don't believe it's the God of the Quran. I don't believe it's the God of Judaism either. I don't believe it's the God of Buddhism. I don't believe if it's a religious God. That's what I believe. But I do not know this God. But I think because the reason I'm referencing all of those like the miracles and things, that's because that's what I grew up on. That's like when you're talking about stuff going on in the black community. Well, I can't say too much about the white community because I didn't grow up in the white community. I'm black,
Yeah. I'm just
yeah.
establishing, though, that the conversation around the existence and reality and legitimacy of miracles is still a separate conversation, because God isn't the only. Uh, the supernatural is not a Christian exclusive. That actually is attached to practices even older than Christianity, which is paganism and just human existence, whether that was miraculous things being observed in the stars, tribes and communities being visited by extraterrestrial entities. I mean, the supernatural literally is as old as man. So it's not even something that is assigned per se just to religion. Like the supernatural, I would even argue, is older than religion itself. So when you're bringing up the supernatural in accordance to Christianity, are you saying that as a Christian you've never experienced anything supernatural? You've never seen like things that people or yourself prayed for that came to pass? You've never experienced a prophecy? You've never experienced intuition? You've never experienced fortune telling? You've never experienced?
Yeah, I've experienced all of those, like the prophecy, a lot of that. I experienced the intuition, have, still do. Um, but all of that's like that. Notice the word intuition. That's going on inside of me. Like that's not something anyone can see. That's only I can see that or experience that. Um,
But it's
but
something
I've
that
never.
we also know can be verified because people were able to perceive things that came to pass later, not after, like after one experienced their intuition and then the future event unfolded.
Yeah, I get that part. I get that. Now a lot of the things I was prophesied. like the things that were going to happen, going to come to pass. I never seen those things come to pass. They never did.
So then
Um,
it wasn't intuitive and it wasn't prophetic. It was just you perceiving things in your own imagination.
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like things people have come up to me and told me, like things people called me up and to the
Oh,
altar.
well, then that applies to them.
But I've had people. No, I have had prophets and psychics, even mediums and people in the who work in that area, that field, tell me things that were going on in my life that they had no way of knowing.
So then in that case, those people were delivering the intuition accordingly. So what you're just talking about is basically hit and miss. It's like a basketball player throwing, a 3-pointer. You know, some athletes didn't hit it, other athletes did. But it
Yeah,
doesn't
but you
mean
can't.
that 3-pointers don't exist just because some athletes couldn't
Yeah, I get that part. I
when
get
other
that part.
athletes did shoot the 3-pointer successfully.
Uh-huh. I get that part, but you can't miss growing back a limb. Like you can't miss raising somebody from the dead. There's like that either happens or it doesn't. You can't miss walking on water. Like I'm talking
You can't
about things
do
that are, yeah, you
it's
cannot do it. That's missing it. You cannot do it, which everybody is doing. They're
and you
missing.
cannot
Everybody's missing
and
that.
you cannot be around to witness it.
Well, how convenient is it that we're never around to witness these things? Never. Like we just hear about them, but nobody ever has any proof, no evidence. Nobody can ever redo it or reproduce it. It's
But
always, well,
people
I
do
heard.
reproduce it, which is why we keep hearing about it. Just because it's not being produced, it's like a certain bean or a certain vegetable or a certain animal also isn't going to be found in your region. That doesn't mean that those animals don't exist, because there are animals that are distinct and exclusive to certain regions.
But you've seen photos of them, like you've seen videos or photos of
What
these
about
animals.
before videos and before photographs? I mean, it's not even like most people are recording when something miraculous happened to begin with, because nobody even knows if what's going to happen is even going to happen. Most miracles are actually spontaneous, not intentional.
Well, if miracles are so spontaneous and unintentional, then that really, to
Like when
me,
I'm
that
praying,
means it had nothing to do with God. It had nothing to do
like
with this.
for instance, when most people go to pray, they don't have a camera rolling. They're not documenting them praying, even though something miraculous can happen during their state of meditation, which is typically where miracles happen at, is doing prayers and communion with whatever they're referring to as God. Nobody has that practice, even in the 21st century where people are always with their phones. I mean, when people are talking to God, they're not per se thinking about recording anything.
Well, you know how many faith healers go around video cameraing like video recording everything they do,
And
like
y'all still
they're,
don't believe that, to my point. So what really is the
but
belief?
they're not doing nothing. Like
So
they're,
what does the no, because there's plenty of historical evidence for a lot of the things that were going on, like in the revivals of the 60s and the 50s. Lots of witnesses to these events, lots of miraculous transmutating things taking place. It's not going to be enough. So what does one's faith have to actually come down to?
well, let me give you an example. Okay, there's one faith healer, and he's been doing this for years. He goes around with his camera. He's always witnessing the people. Has a camera with him just everywhere he goes, like whenever he goes evangelizing. But he has a shtick, like he has this gimmick, this thing that he does. His whole thing, quote unquote, ministry is, well, not his whole. That's not his whole ministry, but as far as the Bible talks about signs and wonders shall follow them. So uh, he has this leg stretching thing, like where he'll find people who one leg is shorter than the other, and so he'll tell the camera, get close, and then so he'll have that person, a random person, sit down in a chair. He'll put their legs up together side by side, and you can see he'll show you, like, you see how their one foot doesn't line up with the other because the other leg is shorter. But people have already shown what this is, so you'll watch the leg grow. Like but his with his hand on the leg. Like, so they're not just sitting there. So he's not standing at a distance and saying, hold your legs up, and then you're watching the leg grow. He's always holding their feet, excuse me. And but Mythbusters have already proven that this is a scam. They've already shown exactly what they're doing. Just like magicians can show you, like you have no idea how they're doing that.
Illusionist.
Yeah, illusionists. So these people are illusionists. That's basically what they are. They'll show you like that, just like the faith healers who are supposed to be
Illusionists,
getting people.
illusionists and musicians are just imitators of the real thing.
Hmm.
I
And you
mean,
got a lot of faith
like we have,
healers who are illusionists.
what I'm talking about. Like, I mean, like we have scammers and fraudsters. I mean, that's always existed.
Well, I have
I
not
mean,
seen
because you
any
just
ones
opened
who
up
are.
I mean, because I'm just pushing back against you because you
Mhm.
opened up your whole argument against atheists not believing in the supernatural and called those people emphatically stupid. I mean, so, and then at the same time, though, you are also kind of debunking the supernatural too. So I'm just like, are these
No,
people
no, I never said the supernatural does not exist. Remember, I was telling you earlier, like all of
but
the
this, a
what I
part of the
consider are
supernatural
supernatural.
is everything under the supernatural also includes the miraculous, whether that's growing limbs, whether that's a blind person seeing again, a deaf person hearing again, a dead person rising again, a cancer stricken person being cancer free, etc. All of that falls under supernatural. The supernatural does not have any particular area of expertise. It's supernatural in any area that they can be manifested in.
Yeah, the reason I'm being specific about my expectations of what I expect to see from Christians is because these things are specifically mentioned in the Bible. So
Again,
atheists aren't going out and saying and claiming that they can heal blinded eyes or make legs grow or heal cancer or HIV. Atheists aren't saying that. Agnostics aren't saying that. Not even Buddhists are saying that. I haven't seen any say that. Um, I haven't seen any Muslims say that. I only hear Christians make these claims that Jesus said, "What everything that He did, ye shall do, and even greater works." So my question is, where are the greater works? I have not seen them.
did you ever ask any of the Christian relatives in your life, where are the works? And what did they say to that?
I haven't. I personally haven't. Not yet,
Why haven't you
at
done
least.
that since I mean, why would you not ask the Christians that you have at arm's length that question when that would seem to be the logical thing to do? I mean, you have Christians right in your own family. You was raised up in this. Remember, you were raised in the church. Why
Mm.
would you never pose this question to the Christians in your own life to see what they have to say?
But for
Never did.
one, those people are in my family. I don't really talk to like that. We're not. I'm not at arm's length with them. We don't really have.
You have a mother who's a Christian. You have siblings who identify as Christians. You have grandparents who identified as Christians. You literally had Christians all around you.
Well, I did
Mm.
mention it to like some of my siblings, for instance. I said, but it was more. It wasn't so much miracles. I was talking about character. I was talking more about the fruit of the
My
spirit
question
that
is,
we
why
give you.
would you not ask the Christians, the people
I just
who
didn't think.
you're
I
saying
just didn't
are
think of it in that moment.
responsible for parading this narrative around? Why would you not ask anybody that you actually know who is a self-identified Christian that you literally have access to why they can't walk on water?
Because I had other things going on in my family that were
That
they were
is that
more.
is not a excuse for the word. Darling, I'm so sorry. That makes no fucking sense. This is literally, we're talking about a religion. This is literally second skin to people's lives. There's never not a time, never not was a space where you was not in a position to ask somebody why you can't walk on water as a practicing Christian. That's inexcusable. There's no way to excuse not being able to have formed those questions to the Christians in your own life who you see every day, who
No,
you have direct access to,
that is a
who you
good
sit around at
question.
the dinner table with and kiki with, who you sit around at Thanksgiving tables with, who you can call on the phone, who you wake up to and see in your own home, walk past and use the same restroom as. There's no excuse why over 43 years of time it was so much going on that you could not ask any Christian in your life the obvious question: why can't you guys walk on water? Why is there any sickly people in our family? If you guys believe that identifying as a Christian comes with healing properties, why is it that, you know, there's economic issues, there's you know, like, why are all these things existing if what comes with being a Christian is having access to the glory that leads to the miracles?
That is a valid question. That's a valid question, and I think I really believe it was like I was mentioning earlier. I think it was because of my own indoctrination. I just think I was too indoctrinated to even ask those questions. And this like, you know, noticing that there's no miracles and things. I didn't so much think of this stuff when I was coming up. I didn't even think of it. I only started thinking of this
But the
stuff
very
like over the
person who
past
said
couple
you
of
was,
years.
but you were the person who said that as a very well, that you started questioning your faith 15 years ago, but that you also as a child were kind of like revolutionary and like challenging these notions. You raised your hand in Bible study, for God's sakes. It says, I'm questioning God.
No, that was when I was an adult. That's when I was an adult. And
So
that's
as
what
a
I told.
at
Yeah,
15,
that's what I told you. Like when I was in Bible study, like when I was in college, like I was in my 20s, late 20s, and I told you they didn't like me because I was asking those kinds of questions.
but you never asked any, but you never asked them the next logical question: why aren't you guys capable of walking on water and demonstrating miracles?
Yeah, I just never thought of it, to be honest. Just
Okay,
put it
so
simply, I never
all
thought
right,
of
so
it.
let's move on from Christianity. But I mean, well, before we move on to Christianity, to get into the God conversation, Christian, are you? So, are you? Do you believe in Jesus? Do you believe that Jesus lived, died, rose at the right hand of the Father, etc.? Do you believe he was a physical human being, a person?
My answer to that is that I want to believe that. I want it to be true, but in all honesty, I question it. I don't know. I wonder about it.
Okay.
I
So,
doubt it.
okay. God, because me and you were having this conversation, which is where, for me, shit get interesting at. We were having a conversation about God, and me and you both came to the conclusion, because for those of you who don't know, I'm a mystic as well. I consider myself to be a Christian mystic. I do believe that Christ lived, died, and resurrected. I would be completely okay with still using Christ as a catalyst for my spirituality, even if Christ never existed physically, because spiritual people use symbols and concepts, narratives and stories and wisdoms in order to inspire them into the spiritual. So the story of Jesus would still benefit me, even if it wasn't one rooted in historicalness to begin with. Because there's also like a lot of deities and a lot of parables, etc., that I hold dear. That
I do have when you get a chance. I do have a I had to play the devil's advocate on one thing you said, but go ahead. Go ahead.
I forgot what I was about to say to
You're
begin
saying
with.
something about deities and
Yeah, no, like not that, but while I was saying that, oh, for those of you who don't know, like I'm a Christian mystic, so um, I I practice Christianity, but in a mystical way. So my Christianity also looks, in some ways, distinctly and contrastingly different than some of my contemporary Christian practicing peers. But also because I am a mystic, foundationally, my journey and experience of God is one that is always like open-ended. So I'm in a like constant state of curiosity and a constant state of open-mindedness when it comes to what God is, where God is, who God is, if anything, and all of those things. So when me and
Right.
D-Rock were having this conversation, both of us were able to agree that God exists in terms of, like, obviously consciousness exists. And for us to be conscious, for any living thing on this planet to be conscious, it means what we call the universe has to be conscious as well. That consciousness has to predate Mother Nature, has to predate material existence, because obviously humans did not create consciousness. We were given consciousness by something beyond us, beyond our understanding. But where we also agreed to is that we don't know who this consciousness is, if there is even a who that exists in the consciousness. So do you want to kind of speak into that a little bit, of the belief that there is a supreme force, that there is a supreme consciousness, that there is a lucidity in the universe, that life is alive, that life is aware, but not knowing what that exactly means, or who that exactly is, or the total functions and characteristics of consciousness?
Yeah, I'm of the same mindset, or the mind frame, excuse me. I do believe there's a supreme intelligence. There has to be. I just think there has to be. Um, I think it's intellectually dishonest to say that there can't be, there is no, like, to say definitively, like I have heard people say, there is no God, there is no spirit world, there is no, and to me, I keep saying spirit world because I feel like the two go hand in hand. I could be wrong, but I feel like that's just my way of way of thinking about it. Spirit is just what we call it, but what I really mean is there's an out, there's an outer world, like there's an invisible world, is what I'm saying. And I think all that goes together: supreme intelligence, invisible world, because we can't see supreme intelligence, but it's part of us because we are intelligent. I don't think that I don't even think that we would have these questions if there wasn't an answer to them. I heard this really revelatory apostle who I knew. He used to say God. He said one day God spoke to him, and I don't know, this is anecdotal. I don't know if this is true or not, but I think it's a good way to think about it. He said that one day God told him that I'm just like Jeopardy. He said I have the answer. I'm just waiting on the right question. He said that's what God told him. Now, whether that was true or not, whether God really told him, I do believe that that is what supreme intelligence is. I believe that it has all of the answers. We would not even have the capacity to even question these things if there was not an answer to them. I just think we haven't found the answer to a lot of things because of maybe how we're going about asking, how we're going about researching. I don't know. But I do definitely believe there is a higher intelligence, supreme intelligence that is just outside and above every one of us. And it kind of goes along with something else we were another conversation we got into because I like what you said because I've always said it. Uh, I can't hear you, conscious.
After you speak of that, don't forget what you were going to play devil's advocate to.
Yes, thank you. But you said God is an artist,
Yes.
and you're the only person I've heard say that. But I have always
I'm a
said that
genius.
myself. You are. That's why your name is Consciouztv. Go figure. But I always think that because I'm an artist myself. I have been since I was a kid, and you know that. Um, and so I think like an artist. And I used to say at one point I would say if God had a occupation, he would be a mathematician.
Mm.
because of the way numbers work and just the way even how we would even that 1111 I was talking about earlier. Um, there's something about numbers, and numbers are always matter of fact. Like 1 plus 1 is always 2. 1 times 3 is always 3, and so on. Like there's a concreteness about math.
It's universal.
It's universal, absolutely, and so that's why I would say, God, if God had a occupation, he would be a mathematician. But I think it's beyond that. Now I say, if God has an occupation, he would be an artist.
Well,
Because
I always say that math is God's language. Art is
right,
what God does.
yes, 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 yes. I would think that way too. I would say that to myself. Um, and I think there's an art even to math. There's an art to math because now I've never looked up the definition of what art is. I just do art. I've never looked up what it means. I don't know the Webster dictionary, but how I think of art, I don't. I've never Googled it, so you can Google it, maybe see what it says. But how I think of art, I think art is, if I could put it in a very simple term, is making connections. I think it's connecting the dots. That's
Do
what
you
art
agree
is.
with this AI overview of art? Art is a diverse form of human expression encompassing creative skill and imagination to produce works primarily visual or perform that are appreciated for their beauty, emotional power, or conceptual depth. Somewhere in that.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
Okay.
But that's a wordy way of saying it. But if I was to put
Well,
it in a simple,
another
uh
overview is the art is the conscious creation of something, an artifact, an experience, or an idea through skill and imagination intended to be appreciated for its beauty, emotional power, conceptual meaning, or to invoke a worthwhile experience for the observer. Ultimately, art is subjective, and what constitutes art can vary widely, encompassing everything from classical paintings to conceptual installations and performing arts, which is what I consider the existence of the known visible universe to be. Is an expression, and it definitely invokes powerful emotional and
mm, mm,
intellectual stimulation, which is why people can just look up at the stars and just look at um, the horizon or look at a waterfall to just peer out into you know mountains and snow and just really feel a sense of totality and alignment and centeredness and um, be inspired to go create art as a result of bearing witness to how visually stimulating creation is, whether it's our own bodies, whether it's each other, whether it's the creation of culture, whether it's the natural world and the natural universe, etc. That all these things definitely kind of like stimulate all the things that human art does. And I just look at the natural world as God's installations and God's creativity and God's
his
uh,
craftsmanship.
mhm.
hmm And everything. I think art is in everything. Everything we do. Um, Even when we don't know it, we don't realize it. Like look at. That's why the entertainment business
It's
is so
unconscious
big.
to us. It's in our unconscious. It's 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 literally a part of our function.
Yeah, it's a part of us. I
I
mean,
mean, literally as simple as preparing a meal, or simply how we decorate
culinary
our
arts.
homes, or how we style ourselves. I mean, everything that we do is an expression of art.
Yeah, it is makeup. Like women wearing makeup. You're painting your face. Your face is a canvas.
Everything.
Your hair, everything you do. I mean, like, look at the entertainment industry. It's the biggest industry that we have. Even when you throw, I don't know how you say it. The safe way to say it, I'd say corn,
Mm-hmm.
CORN. When you
Adult
throw
content.
yeah,
Adult
adult content.
content.
Yeah, sex is an art. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything, like we do, literally is an art. And so God is an artist. I believe that the supreme intelligence, and when I say God, God, that's just the is. I just look at it as a slang term, or like it's just a term that we're familiar with. But when I say God, I don't mean the God of the Bible. That's where we get the term from, but that's not who I mean. Who I'm talking about.
You're talking about a concept that like is
Yeah,
beyond.
the concept.
Yeah, that's beyond.
Mhm. Yeah. And earlier I sent you a song by Rebecca St. James. She's a contemporary Christian artist, but she has this song called God. That's the simple name of the song. And I've always loved that song. And but you when you get a chance, just listen to it. But
Yeah.
and some people listening, you might have heard it, but I just love that song. It says he look at and she's just walking out into in the forest, and she's just like look at the trees, look at the water, like it's God, truly God.
Yeah.
I can't explain it any other way. Is the lyrics.
Yeah.
And when I look at animals, look at sea creatures, like I'm always thinking God. Like I always wonder. Like I always see God in it. I say, what was God thinking when He made this creature? Like what was
I think
God
that way
thinking?
about human beings. What the fuck was God thinking? God made Donald Trump.
It
Absolutely.
definitely when you just instead of being on autopilot and looking at things from the on the surface, if you think God every in everything, like everything you do, everything you say,
There's no
everything you
rising.
see, and just that's it's like really a form of praying almost because it's like even the Bible says acknowledge God in all of your ways. So that's a way of to me of acknowledging God, like His creations, and I don't know like I can't explain. Just like the lyrics of that song say, I can't explain it any other way. I literally can't explain it, but
And that's how you know it's God. It's so
right. I was just gonna say that.
it's
Yeah,
so inexplicable. It's so transcendent that it's like it has to be thrown into the God into the God box. It's like what other? It's beyond the beyond. It's beyond intellect. Yeah.
yeah, and even the Bible says, and I keep going back to the Bible. It's almost a habit. Like it's just going on because that's all I know is the Bible. So I keep going back to it. But even the Bible says His ways are higher, and I'm sure everybody knows this. His ways are higher than your ways. His thoughts are higher than your thoughts.
The God's ways and mind are
Yeah,
as far
God's.
from man as the earth is from heaven.
Right.
Mhm.
And I heard a preacher say, like, we're like ants. You know, I think most of us, if not all of us, have played with ants when we were
Are
kids.
microorganisms
Yeah,
and
microwave.
and heavy on the micro.
Right, right. And ants are so smart. Like they're so organized. Like, but you would never think that. You
Everything
just
in
look at
create
this.
everything in creation actually is from ants to bacteria to
Yeah,
viruses
they're
themselves.
intelligent
Yeah,
organisms. Yes.
yeah, extremely intelligent and
Yeah,
lucid and
and
conscious and has awareness.
hmm
Can fight and fend for themselves. Can colonize. Can replicate.
yeah. But look at the difference between us and ants. Like they're intelligent, but like they have their own world going on. Like they have the queen, the king. They have an army. Like they walk in a straight lines
The
formation,
hierarchy.
and
Mhm.
yeah, you have a hierarchy. Yeah, and
So that leads us to because I know you ain't got
mhm.
long. Well, so before we get there, devil's advocate.
Yes, I have to challenge you on one thing.
Mhm.
You said Jesus is pretty much you focus on Jesus, and Jesus is more of a, I guess, a ideology for you. He's more like a
Jesus is everything for me.
everything for you. But you say even if he
A
wasn't a
philosophy, a way
literal,
of life, a discipline, a reference. It's in front. The crisis data is. I mean, it's all of that.
yeah, and you said even if he wasn't a literal historic figure, he still is everything for you. But you
Even as a
realize,
even as a symbol, even as a story,
even
it
as
was
a simple,
still yeah, it was still invoke spiritual inspiration and spiritual alignment because
uh-huh,
there are things that I consciously believe in that I know are uh literal fiction, but that doesn't nonetheless keep it from being a point of inspiration and things that I can use in my meditations and symbolisms and concepts that resonate with me that I use to kind of as like a rocket booster into a higher state of consciousness. I mean, we even do this with cartoons and books and fictional characters all the time. You know,
I
like
see.
think about the comic book world, like right, like how Superman literally invokes actual humanity in people. Like there are people who literally like look up to Superman. They know he's a fictional character,
Mm-hmm.
but his humanity, his strength, his perseverance, his vigilantiness, like we do this all the time with like fictional creations that we know are inherently fictional. So even if you stripped away all of the historicalness of Christ for me, that inspiration would still be there just because I am also just keenly aware that I just like the story and the narrative of Christ. I like what Christ represents. I like this concept of a super empath who advocated severely for the disenfranchised. I see that as a reality reflected in my actual ancestors, our Dr. King's, our Malcolm X's, so many of our revolutionary Black civil rights activists essentially were doing the same work and put their lives on the line for the same reason. So a crisis just kind of amongst all of that stuff that just really drives my own personal humanity.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I got you. And that's
I figured
and
that I could clear that up for you.
yeah, and it's
I thought
actually
I
in it,
would be able to. I typically can.
and it's intellectual.
Because I am really good at being able to defend everything that I am. Like I don't just exist as a surface person. When I come to conclusions and when I have belief systems and etc., like I'm very clear about what something is doing for me.
Hmm.
And
And I was just gonna say that.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's intellectually honest
mm-hmm.
as well, because you're saying you're not dogmatically saying, Jesus is real. I know, I know that's a song, but
No, because even I'm clear that there's very little physical evidence to support Jesus' existence. He probably was not a real person, even though there are a few external resources outside of Christianity that seem to give life to the fact that Christ was a historical figure. But then, even when you get to the historical part, the historical is very fucking different from the superstitious, superpower yielding Christ that is of the Bible. But none of
mm,
that bothers me personally because I like the supernatural story and I can take it as a story. It doesn't have to be real for me. But that's also to your point why I'm not like dogmatic. Like I don't preach Christ to other people. I don't try to save souls with Christ. I'm mature enough to like for Christ for me to be my personal, but it's literally personal. It's just my personal experience. It's my personal belief system. I don't try to project that onto other people. I don't try to sell that to other people. I don't try to recruit other people into that. It's just my personal walk, and that keeps me out of having to war with other people too over this shit.
yeah.
It's okay.
Hmm. But one of the tenets, well, the main tenet of the Christian faith, at least the Christian faith I'm talking about, is that Jesus came in the flesh. That's how you're saved, is to believe that. You're not even saved if you don't believe Jesus came in the flesh. Like he actually literally died, was crucified, and raised from the dead. And that's even I've even heard many accounts of people who have had like supernatural experiences, and they say there's a real devil. He's a deceiver. He's an angel. He appears as an angel of light. But one of the things that people would use to test these angels of light is to say, well, do you believe that Jesus came in the flesh? I recently heard a lady say this, that there's some angels came to her and she said, she tested them. She said, do you believe that Jesus came in the flesh? And she said they vanished. And she never knew what that was about, but that's why she tested it. But she never like went any further with that, but I've heard other mystics, even Patricia King. Um, she's here on YouTube now, but she always teach the school of the supernatural. And I had her album. I used to listen to her, but she said that's one of the ways to test spirits to see if they are of God is to ask them, do they believe that Jesus came in the flesh? And every time it works like clockwork, from what I understand, what I've heard, is that they will either get angry, they'll contort, like they'll turn into their true form, or they'll just vanish, they'll go away. And she said, like the spirit of truth, even the Holy Spirit, the spirit of truth will not get angry at you asking questions, at you questioning it, or questioning him, excuse me. Um, but that's a sign. That's a sign of. That's how you can tell. The Bible talks about discerning spirits and to see if they are of God, questioning them, and test the spirit by the spirit or whatever. Um, but that's inside of Christianity. We're talking broader than that right
Yeah,
now.
I mean, I do believe that Christ, as I said, is a historical figure, but I'm okay if Christ is not. Like, that's okay for me, and I'm a Jesus freak at heart, just a period. So I mean, it's just like it doesn't have to be historical, but I do believe that Christ was a historical figure. I'm not even sure that the biblical accounts of Christ are correct, but that's a whole nother story. But Christ, and whatever Christ is in principle, I believe that walked the earth.
Yeah, yeah. We don't know if any of the accounts of the Bible are real, to be honest. Like because if you really look at everything honestly, I haven't seen, like, there's really no historic evidence for any of it. Noah's flood. And I've seen
Well, there
some.
is more
I would,
scientific. There is scientific evidence for a global flood.
yeah, I
Uh,
was just going to say that.
yeah, but
But as far as Moses
in terms of
and
Moses himself, yeah, no.
yeah, all of that stuff.
Now,
But you were saying, go ahead.
yeah. Now going back to the whole, because me and you was indulging in the conversation around the way we believe like God is relating, right? Because there's a lot of stuff that's going on in our world right now, and a lot of people are asking a logical question: where is God? Where is God?
Hmm.
There's all this craziness going on, all this suffering going on, all this hell that's breaking loose. I mean, we even in America had a whole Catholic school shot up. Like these young people were praying for God's sakes
Yeah.
when they were assassinated.
Yes.
So the question would be, God, where's God? And so something that I've been entertaining as a hypothesis on where God is, because sometimes the only way I can make sense of God's lack of direct intervention into the shenanigans is by thinking of God in the same way that a gamer
Hmm.
thinks or relates
Hmm.
to playing PS4 or playing Grand Theft Auto. But you have to think about it from like God's perspective, not as the created things perspective. So if
Right.
God is the creator, and God is clear that we're not as sentient as we believe we are. We don't exist in the way that we think we exist. Like
Mm.
our software may actually exist, aka the soul and the spirit, but the hardware and the sense of reality, it is virtual, aka a temporal. It's a construct.
Simulation.
It's a simulation. And because we're not inherently tied to the simulation, God may be more passive toward the things that are happening in that simulation, because it's not a real construct. It's not a objective construct. It's just literally a game. It's a production. It's a movie that's just playing out in the multiverse. And because of that passive posture from God and the reality that the simulation we're in is not inherently objectively real, this allows for everything to happen. including the most impressive, inspiring acts of love to the most devastating of evil and wickedness played out in the simulation. The same way that a gamer almost goes in, right, to Mortal Kombat, goes into Grand Theft Auto, knowing that it's going to be action, kind of is in it for the action. Like the game was created to kind of encompass all the dynamics of highs and lows, wins and losses, destruction in life, that all that polarity exists in that simulation for the sake of that experience. Now, if God knows that, then of course, me praying to God about my measly fucking light bill, doesn't God give a fuck about my fucking light bill? For God, my lights aren't even real. My light bill isn't even fucking real. I'm not even fucking real. Like, it's a simulation, for God's sakes. But there are cheat codes. So spirituality is like the cheat code. Like, so there are laws that hold this simulation together. You know how to tap into those laws. You know how to utilize your consciousness in unison with those spiritual laws. You can have so-called breakthroughs. You can have so-called miraculous. You can have so-called supernatural. Natural becomes super if you know how to tap into the cheat codes. And that's where we get off into the invention of religion and spirituality and metaphysics and people bearing witness to things beyond science, etc., that lead to convictions and practices in these areas of life called spirituality. And that can be from paganism to Buddhism to Christian mysticism, etc., all of that good stuff. But outside of using the cheat code, you're just subjected to the rules of the simulation.
Yeah, and kind of. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Kind of evidence of that. I think the evidence of that, what you're saying, is the deja vu that all of us have experienced at one point in time, and even like premonitions and things like even when my mom passed. I think it was a couple of weeks. I never marked the date because I wasn't even aware. Something was happening, but I wasn't even aware of exactly what it was. I just knew it was something because I mentioned it once. I said, I had the weirdest dream this morning. And it was an experience where I literally heard an audible voice. And no, I'm not schizophrenic, not bipolar, any of that. It was actually my brother's voice, one of my brothers. It was his voice. He who lives here. And my mom, of course, I lived with her at the time. She was ill. And up out of my sleep by an audible voice saying, "Your mother stopped breathing, called 911." And it was my brother's voice. So I thought my brother was in my room. I was like, I thought he opened my door and told me that. But when I opened my eyes, nobody was at my door and my door was still closed. Light was still on. But I was wide awake.
It's some feedback in your microphone.
I don't know what it is.
It just started to. It just started doing that.
Okay, is it still doing it?
No, it's better.
Okay. But and so I got up and I said, well, and because I had experiences before with being woken up by invisible, whatever they were.
Yeah.
I said, well, maybe this is an angel telling me to get up and check on my mom. And so I got up and I went out and I stood and made sure her chest, made sure she was moving. And then once I saw her chest move, like, oh, she's breathing. Okay, she's just asleep. Well, a couple weeks after that, I was at work and I got a call. My mom passed. And she passed away in the house. And the only person who was there was the same brother whose voice I heard a couple of weeks before that, telling me to check on her. And so, and I had dreams before that my mom had died and came back to life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got the call that she had passed, but then I got a call back saying that they found a pulse. And then so my mom ended up in the ICU. For a few days. And I, so anyway, she ended up passing away in the hospital a couple weeks after that, almost 2 weeks after that. And now what happened was my mom passed in December. So I was helping a friend and / coworker plan a Christmas party for our job.
Mm-hmm.
And and there was a certain color that was the theme of our party.
Mm-hmm.
When I called one of my aunts, we was putting together my mom's memorial service, and I asked her what my mom's favorite color was because I never knew that. Um, she told me what my mom's favorite color was. It was the exact color of the theme of our Christmas party at my job. And so the shirt that I bought to wear to the Christmas party, I wore that same shirt to my mom's memorial service. And there were other things that happened. There were synchronicities like numbers that were uh, like family members you couldn't get on the phone. And then the moment I was going into the hospital to talk to my siblings about pulling the plug, uh, they called as soon as I opened the door. And then they got to talk to my mom for the last time. Like just moments like that. And that it wouldn't have happened had I not walked in the door at that exact moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but and that's just one of many out of my lifetime that I've had like experiences where there's evidence that this was already planned, and I'm just a part of it. I'm just a part of something that already.
I want to share my own experience of that too,
Uh-huh.
because me and you kind of had similar experiences
Yeah.
of our mom's passing. My mom actually perceived her death about 2 weeks before it happened. I had come home one day and she was cooking in the kitchen, and when I was walking across the entrance to the kitchen, she saw me and she came up to me and she hugged me and she started crying. And my mom is not a person who cries. She's not like emotional in that kind of way. She is a hellraiser, but she don't express
Wow.
emotions of sadness, more so emotions of frustration and anger, but not per se sadness. And so she came up to me, she hugged me, and she said, "Da, I just feel like something is going to happen. I feel like something is going to happen. I just feel like something's going to happen to me." And I said, "Mom, everything's going to be all right. You're probably just, got some anxiety because you are going to be starting, what's it called? What you call it? You're going to be starting, what's the process called where you get your blood drained and cleaned and put back in you?"
That's I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's right there on the edge of my head,
Yeah, it's at the edge of my brain
but I
too.
cannot pull it out of the way.
Dialysis. Dialysis.
Dialysis, yes, dialysis. I said, you probably just got some anxiety because you're going to be starting dialysis, etc. Da, da, da. So I had encouraged her. Boom. That Sunday came. Now, mind you, the night before, I had went to bed. No, I had went out celebrating my cousin's birthday because she also passed away like 3 days before my birthday. And my mom was on the porch. It was like 2-3 a.m. She was on the porch smoking a cigarette, and I had came home because she wanted me to take her to church in the morning. So I was like, okay, cool. So she spoke to my cousin, told him happy birthday, went, in, and she fell asleep on the couch in the living room. I went to bed, and then I was having this dream that I was drowning in this white box, and this box was just filling up with water, and water got all the way up to my nostrils, and I just remember crying out to God, saying, "God, not this way, not this way. I don't want to die this way. Don't let me die this way. Not this way, not this way, God." And that water came all the way up, which was the first time that I've ever actually died in a dream.
Wow.
And so I woke up to my mom making some distressing sounds, like the sound of somebody who was having like a nightmare maybe. And when I went to go see about her, she was on the couch and she was just like turning her head left and right with her eyes closed, and she was kind of like moaning. And initially I thought she was just in a nightmare, so I was like, just trying to gently wake her up. She would not actually wake up. So then that's when I called 911. They came and took her. She had actually died in the ambulance, but they had resuscitated her. So then by the time she got to the hospital, she was hooked up to life support, and she was only operating with 1% brain function. And from there, over the course of the next few days, we had to make a choice to either keep her on life support, which was a personal cost that the family could not afford to do so, or to take her off life support. My mom had already, long before this event had ever happened, she had always said, if anything happened to me and I end up in like a vegetable state, let me go. She said,
my mom said the same thing.
She said, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to put y'all through that. She said, you just let me go if something like that ever happens to me. And here it was. We was in a full reality of that. So ended up taking her off of life support after like 3 days. And then the next day, I was up washing dishes. It was like early noon, and I felt the kitchen fill up with her perfume. And then I felt this like very bizarre electrical sensation right to my side, like somebody had gently touched me on my rib cage, but it felt like how it would feel if a ghost like touched you. It was a very non-painful yet fully electrical vibrational sensation. And I knew that it was my mom, and I knew that that was her making her rounds now that she had been fully separated from the body, and she was still close to the earth plane at that point. And she was just kind of making her rounds and letting all her loved ones know that it's all right. I'm still here. Everything is well. And because I was a mystic, a full-on mystic, a full-on astral projector, full-on out-of-body experiencer, full-on spiritualist, I already knew and had a concept for this. I already knew that it was possible that my mom probably was already out of her body. Even while she was on life support, she probably already was experiencing separation.
Yeah,
Watching and observing us in that state, somewhere in between realities, even, and then the moment of full-on biological death. Because I do believe in the Jewish mystical concept that the soul has probably about a week or 7 days before it can cross over. And if it doesn't cross over after that several days, that soul can remain earthbound. So my mom got to tapping everybody on their shoulder quick that, hey, I'm here. I'm good. I love y'all. I'm alive, truly and well. And every now and again, throughout the years, because that happened back in 2012, throughout the years, I occasionally will smell her perfume. Matter of fact, one more personal experience, and I believe this was my mom for a few reasons, but you guys know I had a diabetic scare, and during the week that I had no idea that I was on the verge of a diabetic coma because I was not diagnosed as a diabetic. So I didn't even know what my symptoms were. I thought I had COVID. And so I was prolonging going to the doctor. I'm just like, this is COVID because I've had COVID before. And I'm like, oh, this is COVID. But it was like lasting longer than usual. So 3 weeks into me thinking I had COVID, I had a virtual appointment at that point. And the doctor was like, yeah, you need to like go to the hospital, go to the ER because these aren't typical. Like COVID don't last as long, blah, 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 blah. There might be some other reasons why you're experiencing these symptoms or whatever. So I had went to bed and my house was completely dark, like completely dark. And I live alone. So I had fell asleep in the dining room and I had like I had wrapped myself up in a blanket. So I was completely cocooned, wrapped up, tied up, entangled in this blanket. And I remember waking up to like the swift ripping of the covers off my face. Like something just went swoosh. And it was so fast, I could literally hear the velocity of the blanket, like as it was being ripped with this massive force off of my body. Now, mind you, I'm tucked in to the blanket. So this ain't even like something you can just like like a fan couldn't like blow this off of me. I'm like all like rolled up in, like literally cocooned into the blanket, and this thing ripped the blanket off of my face. And so I just remember like sitting there because I was just so stunned. Like, what the fuck? So my first instinct was to listen to see if I could hear movement. Because obviously whatever this did this is very close to me. So I wanted to see if I could hear any move because my house, like, I had no lights on. I didn't hear any movement. I didn't perceive any type of evil even. I was like very calm for someone who just got, you know, ripped awake and awakened under these very bizarre circumstances where it would not have been possible for, you know, some non-material thing to rip my covers off. And I just sat there and I just sat there and sat there and sat there and sat there and sat there to feel out the environment. And because I didn't perceive any threat, slowly I got up, turned on the lights, sat there, and then the next day, mail came from my mother. My mother had been dead for 21 years at that point. Hold on, no, not 21 years.
Yeah, it wasn't that long.
Yeah, no, it's not 21 years. My mom had been dead. 2012 to 2022 is somewhere between what, 18?
That's 10 years, right?
Oh, that's 10 years?
2012 to 2022. Yeah.
20, hold on, is it 22 or 23? Oh, so that's 14 years. Okay, so I'm way off. Yes, so my mom had been dead for fucking 10 years. 10 fucking years. And this piece of mail comes in the mail. So what I had surmised from that is that I didn't even know I was close to death because when I finally did get to the hospital, the doctor was like, Mr. Augustus, I'm so glad you came to fuck in when you did, bitch, because you were either going, you should have been in a coma by now or just dead. Like the fact that you even lasted like this for 3 weeks, almost a month, is crazy. And so, you know, I believe that because I was literally on the verge of life and death without even knowing it, that veil thinned greatly. And then because my mom has been keeping an eye out on me on the other side, that it allowed her to come through in a way that could be perceived and measured, where she could really lay hands on me. And she came at a time where she was literally trying to get my attention and trying to tell me, you know, that I need to definitely get up and go see something about myself. And then that mail coming the very next day was just like kind of the synchronicity that just put the ice on the cake. Like, oh, that definitely was my mom. That was on my ass, still being a mother from the other side, caring about her firstborn, being passionate about her firstborn, and kind of being in a state of anxiety more than likely, you know, because she could probably actually see my life force from her vantage point because she's already on the other side.
Yeah.
So, but to your point, right? People have had these experiences, like humans have had these experiences there throughout the whole of human existence. The supernatural has been not only perceived individually, there have been collective visions, collective supernatural manifestations that are historically documented. So that doesn't, however, per se lead to a God. That doesn't, not to a God, but it doesn't say anything about a God other than that's also just a part of God's expression. Like all of this is the result of God, but it doesn't tell us anything about, to your point, like the personhood of God. It just demonstrates that there are multi-layers to existence and that there are realities upon realities upon realities upon realities upon realities, and that existence exists in very diverse ways. But when it comes to the question of like, who is God? Even in all of my journeys out of the body, with ayahuasca, with edibles. I have personally experienced the love of God. I've personally experienced the grace and the eternalness of what we are calling God. And at best, I guess what I can say is from my own experience of God, I've had nothing but a loving experience of God. But because God created everything else in the material world, because every time I experienced the love of God, I was in a transcendental state. But then when I come back here and I look at how everything exists, like anti-love exists, anti-mercy exists, cruelty exists, hate exists, violence exists, wickedness exists. I'm like, okay, the only way I can relate this back to God, who personally I've only experienced love from, is the fact that I just must have a misunderstanding of life. Like, this has to be a simulation. It has to be that who God is very different from what God has done, aka create the simulation. Some people can argue, well, God, like if God was good and loving, then God should have, why would God create an experience where things that are not of God can happen?
Yes, valid question.
I mean, but you can also argue, why would a Christian simulator create a concept that involves good and evil? Like, there are Christian directors, there are good-hearted people that produce and write films and cartoons and movies that play off of the dynamics, right, of good and evil, of light and darkness. Are we also arguing, like, why would a Christian create something like? Because it's fantasy. And what could be possible is the fact that we are a part of the fantasy. But God can be separate from that fantasy in terms of just the creator. But God's personhood didn't go into the fantasy per se, because this is a fantasy experience.
Yeah, you're basically saying that the evil is only evil for us, but it's not actually real.
And not only is the evil not real, we aren't in the sense of this biological form. That's why it's so temporal. That's why it's so disposable. That's why it's so fragile. It's not the idol of the soul. It's not the idol of the spirit. It's just a vehicle particularly designed for a biological experience of God's fantasy in this simulation, which happens to be of light and dark.
I don't know. That's the
Because even for you, right? You are, I would consider you to be a good person. I don't believe that you would be capable of launching a missile and destroying an entire country, or that you would go put anthrax in the U.S. mail and kill a bunch of damn people. Like, I don't think that you are a wicked person, but you also have interests as a good person that someone can argue, right, that may be contrasting to that goodness, such as your interest in Mortal Kombat. You know, like, you love Mortal Kombat as a concept. You love the fighting and the gore and the lore of Mortal Kombat and all of the things. And you're a good person. So why can't it be possible that God is good, God is love, but is capable of creating things in God's imagination and fantasies that are contrary, without that also conflicting with God's inherent virtue? Because if this is a simulation and we are agreeing, right, that it's not real, then it means that we can't judge God by what's happening in the simulation.
Well, I think we also have to understand, and this is not me being hyperbolic. This is not
Mhm,
me being too deep. But this is. I think we also need to understand what we mean by the word real.
mhm,
Because when I hear this isn't real, I challenge that because I do believe in reality. I do believe there are things that are real and there are things that are fantasy. I do believe there is a difference. Even when it comes to now, it's getting harder and harder to tell, especially virtually. I think virtually because uh, even AI is getting scary by the day because now you can't even. There's a video online and it's like a test and it's saying choose which one. Okay, the one at the top, one at the bottom. Which one of these is AI and which one is real? It's actually really hard to tell which one is AI, which one is real. Sometimes you get it wrong. Um, but you know, even a few days ago, I don't know if you saw it, but somebody made a Michael Jackson
yeah.
AI video, yeah, where
And
he's still in the chicken nugget.
somebody had just recently made one of Tupac in heaven and
Yeah,
Tupac on
yeah,
walking
yeah,
the
I
street.
saw that one. Uh huh. And but that's virtual. Now
But
you
that's
can
more my
manipulate
point.
virtually,
Like, what
but
if?
in
But what's
real
the
life,
difference? But what's the difference, D-Rock, between Tupac hypothetically waking up in that virtual reality and believing he's a real boy, like he's a real man, and that his heavenly or environmental environment, like his environmental reality is like actually real. But in this case, we would be God because we created that. We created Tupac. We created the story he's in. We created the heaven he thinks he's in. Even though Tupac has an independent awareness that is convincing him that this is real as in real. But to your point, right? Like it is real. It's real to Tupac, but it's not real in all actuality because the creator of that simulation knows that it's just a simulation. This is just a product of my imagination and my creativity. That's why I don't give a fuck about what happened to
yeah,
the
and the
character.
real Tupac is nowhere around. Like he has no awareness of that he's in the AI video. He's somewhere else, wherever that is. Um, not even paying no
So
attention
why
to that.
can't
He
it be that this is the posture of God? Because this would explain why, to a lot of people's point, like, where is God? I mean, God is being a passive creator. That's all. I mean, like, God is just being what every other creator is doing, sitting back and watching the works. Like a filmmaker, a producer, a writer goes about producing the story in the movie and then sits back and watches the finished product. And it doesn't matter what's happening in the movie. It doesn't matter that somebody's being unalive. It doesn't matter that pets are dying. It doesn't matter that there's an apocalyptic scenario, you know, within that movie. Is all a part of the fantasy in the creating process. Why would God intervene when that would strip the creative outlet of what it is? It's creative. It's
and
it, it's supposed to do what it's doing, and I know it's not real, but I do understand that the created things in the movie think that they're real, but that doesn't make it real just because they think it's real. It just means that they're having an experience of self-awareness. But that doesn't change the fact that it's not real, no matter how much they believe what's happening is real. Yes, you see that 18-wheeler truck coming, you believe this is about to be the end of your life, and it is an 18-wheeler coming, but it's not the end as in the end, and the truck is not really the truck, and you not really the you, and this ain't what you've been thinking that it is. But because you are in creation intimately, it's hard to exist outside of that framework because your biological existence is tethered to the rest of the planet. So of course, like, you're convinced that everything that's taking place is literally objective, which also really goes against quantum physics and mechanics. Most of space is fucking empty. And that tree is actually not that tree. That tree is just vibrating at a rate that makes it appear objective to your sensory. Your body is not real. It's just vibrating at a certain rate. Like, this is literal science. So we know that this shit is not real, as in real.
well, just because it's
Even
vibrating doesn't mean it's not real.
it does mean it's not real. That's why the supernatural can happen, right? That's why the miraculous can take place. That's why people can end up Like, look at all those rescue stories. My cousin even had a rescue story. I've had angelic rescue experiences of people being trapped in a burning house and then finding themselves in the front yard without being able to explain it. People finding themselves in completely dangerous situations and then being in a different location at a point where they thought they were going to fucking die.
Somebody
Like,
in the comments, I'm sorry. Somebody, I know I just read the comments. Somebody in the comments, they say, so God is Harvey Weinstein?
no, I would say that God is more like Steven Spielberg. God is just a great dramatic creator. I mean, God likes drama. One of the things that I learned in my edible experience when I was with God is that God is the drama. And God loves the drama. And all of this is the drama of God. All of this humanity bickering and learning and creating and evolving, the stars, the extraterrestrials, the terrestrial, the interdimensional, all of this shit is the drama of God.
Yeah,
It's just the
even in the
drama of
Bible.
God.
Even in the Bible, and I heard Patricia King say, before I get to the Bible, she said, they say, because she was telling some of her experiences in ministry, she said, they say the Holy Spirit is a gentleman, because I always heard that in church. The Holy Ghost is a gentleman. He's not going to force himself on you. And Patricia King said, I don't know about that. She said, the Holy Ghost has done some pretty radical things. He's torn up some churches. Like but in the Bible, Jesus himself said, I didn't come to create peace. I came to make war. I came to turn mother against daughter, son against father. Uh, he said that in the actual Bible.
And the
And
context for that, though, it's a context for that. I know that people
I
like
know there's a context.
I know that people like to isolate shit, but that
Right.
also,
Yeah, like like I'm sorry to say, but the right wing people, the evangelicals, they like to take scriptures like that and
and isolate
justify being nasty and hateful and mean and just downright heartless. Well, Jesus said, he came to turn family against each other, and because that's how cults are formed as well. They use passages like that. Um, but I do agree. It would appear that God is for the drama, because even when you go back to Genesis, um, God didn't punish them for their good or their evil. He punished them for the knowledge of good and evil. So that's what they were forbidden. That's not. It didn't say that was the tree of good and evil. It didn't even say it was for evil. It says that's the tree of knowledge, of the knowledge of good and evil. So now, whatever that means, I think that's a whole conversation in that. Like, what was that all about? And then he put the snake in the garden. So it's like,
to that point, though,
mhm.
like just a little bit to that point is that, and it doesn't even mean that Adam and Eve would have never been able to eat from it. God instructions were just clear at that particular time and Adam and Eve's existence to stay the fuck away from this. Because it could have just been a matter of Adam and Eve not being mature enough to handle a certain level of knowledge, given their respective positions to begin with in the earth and in the garden, etc., that partaking in that tree would have been a distraction. But God still had to put the tree there, because you can't provide the experience of autonomy without choice. So God had to provide the concept of choice so that you're having the experience of autonomy by having options, by there being contrast, etc. But I'm not even sure if, and of course we're indulging in the mythology as if it's real, that God would have even forbidden them forever. But to your point about God putting the serpent there, what?
Yeah, in the Bible, it says that God tempts no man, but he put the tempter in the garden to tempt his children, which caused the fall of man, leaving mankind to forever fight for their eternal souls. Um, so that's like one of the many inconsistencies or seemingly contradictions, and some of them aren't seemingly. Some contradictions in the Bible are really blatant and in your face. But that's one of the seeming contradictions the Bible tells you that God does not tempt you, but the very first, before sin ever even came into the earth, it came with him putting the tempter in the garden and then setting temptation right before them, like saying, yeah, don't touch that tree, but here you are, you know. And so there's a whole, this is why I told you I follow a lot of
I think
atheists,
that I think that experiencing temptation is very different from something intentionally enticing you to do something. Like,
which is what the serpent did.
if I have to have the experience of autonomy, like, you have to create situations like this where there is choice and variation, because I don't have a sense of autonomy without that variation being there.
Yeah.
Now, if I take it upon myself to end up tempted as a result of the choices that are available to me, that's not because the other party per se is tempting me. I mean, temptation is just a natural product in that case of the circumstance at hand. What the so-called serpent did was intentionally entice by encouraging, trying to motivate, trying to stimulate Eve into disrupting God's instructions. Held her in a whole conversation and played on her intellect. And to my point about Adam and Eve being immature as fuck, playing off of her ignorance, because everything that the serpent sold to Eve was already something God had given to both her and Adam to begin with. He offered them eternal life. They were already eternal beings who were going to live forever. He said, you will be like God. Genesis opens up and said, I've made him and her in our image. They're already made in our image. So he literally resold them everything they were too stupid to understand they already fucking had. Like, the serpent was a slick motherfucker in reselling them their own shit, and Eve fell for it. Now, that's an act of temptation. That's actively, like, what the serpent did is actively tempting. God simply creating variation and options so that Adam and Eve can have the experience of choice and free will and contrast and autonomy is very different.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I think also
One
when
is
you
a
mentioned,
byproduct. The other one was like intentionally aroused, and it's the actual act of tempting someone.
I get what you're saying. Like the actual tree just being there, the tree is an inanimate object, so it can't tempt them. The temptation is coming from inside of them. But when the serpent came, that was him tempting. He was actually a tempter. But at the same time, God had authority over the snake. God is the one who put the tempter there. He put him there to test them. And so it wasn't just him.
I don't agree that God put the tree there. What I believe.
No, not the tree. He put the serpent there. On top of putting the tree there, he also put the serpent there, and the serpent there to entice them. And let's say he did not. Let's say he didn't deliberately put the serpent there to entice them.
Yeah, because I'm asking, where does
but he had foreknowledge.
Was put there to tempt them.
But it said God knows the beginning from the end, or the end from the beginning. Excuse me. But so God had foreknowledge of that they were going to fall. Like, what was the?
But once again, y'all don't realize that y'all are speaking about God's nature, because it's God's nature. God is omniscient, omnipotent. God has no choice but to know the beginning and end of a thing. I mean that's God's nature.
Yeah, the nature of the Creator. Already. That's like Manai.
It's like a butterfly I'm having wings. I mean, they go hand in hand. I mean, so yeah. God can't God can't get around knowing the end of the beginning. but that goes to my all this kind of argues my point is that because the question then becomes right, why then? Why would God? Because obviously, like, it's not real as in real. That's why it doesn't really matter what the outcome is, because it's not even real. We're talking about God's screenwriting when we're talking about creation.
Well,
It's so from God's perspective, I could see creation being like this is shallow for God, but it's personal to us because like we in it. So of course it's personal to us. Like this my body, like this my dick, this my brain. I feel it. I'm tethered to all the sensations. So of course it, it's personal for me. But from the larger picture, if this isn't real, then I accept that even as personal as I feel my experience is, that it's not real just because I believe, like Pinocchio, that I'm a real boy. I'm not a real boy. I'm not real.
I think
I'm not. I don't exist as in Davion. Like my software, which the Bible says goes back to God, right? Like all of man's spirit returns back to God. The software all goes back to the Creator. But all of this shit is just avataring. The trees are avatars. The body is an avatar. All this shit is plastic. It's Legos. All of it is Lego material. Like it's not real. And if God deconstructs it, reconstructs it, reverses it, re-unos it, like it's Play-Doh.
So let me so I understand what you mean by when you say real, because I think I get, like, I ran into a snag in the carpet when you say it's not real. I think I'm contending that it is real. I think
Think
there's
of it
another
this way.
word that there's another word
This is
there's a
another.
better word to
No,
use.
I've been trying to use other examples too. Like, think of us as a video game characters inside of a video game simulation, a part of virtual reality. Like, I'm trying to make it as plain as possible, or think of it as like what we're experiencing here is equivalent to a dream. Like when we dream, it feels real too, right? When we dream, you believe in the dream, and you dead ass serious in the dream, unless you're having like a lucid dream. But when you're dreaming, you're going alone to get alone. You have no idea that your body is actually on the couch, knocked the fuck out. Like you are in a whole nother dimension, a whole nother spirit, time, and space. You might be a whole nother gender. People be dreaming that they're a woman and they're a man. People be dreaming that they white when they black. People be dreaming all type of shit,
The
and
blind
as
people dream that they
real.
can see.
And some people come out of those dreams, right? The dream can be so quote unquote so real, I would say convincing,
I've
so
had
convincing,
those.
so convincing that you really wake up like, girl, what was that an actual dream, bitch, or what was I? Where was I? Because that shit felt so-called real. So just think of like
Yeah.
our biological existence, right? It's just a denser dream. It just lasts longer. We don't like phase in and out of it like we do a single dream per experience. This is just an elongated dream. And so, yes, we feel that it's real. We feel convinced about experience. We feel convinced about independence. We feel convinced of our lives. We feel convinced of each other. We feel convinced about planet. Just like we do in a dream. We feel fucking convinced. But no matter how convinced we are, doesn't mean we're not dreaming. Because then, holla, we wake up. And in this case, we die, right? Which is the ultimate awakening from the dream. Like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, that was quite a long, lengthy dream. That was, in fact, the dream. But it has all the components. This reality is just that. It's just a dream. A 70-year-long dream. A 60-year-long dream, a 15-year-long dream, a 25-year-long dream, and just because we are convinced that it's real, because we can just feel all the things, we can see all the things, and it all feels objective and hard and material, it's possible that it can't, and it's possible that that's okay, right? Because it is a simulation. There's no soul in this experience. Why else would a loving God not be coming through for the so-called innocent, for the so-called babies, for the so-called children, for the so-called poor, for the so-called sickly? unless it's because this experience isn't what we have been taught that it is. And because most of us are very religiously indoctrinated, and we've been socialized to believe in a personal God who is personally invested in our fucking lives and personally invested in who we fucking and who we marrying and all of this goofy shit, that it's hard for us possibly to conceive of a God that's more passive. It's hard for us to conceive of, you know, a God who is more laid back and who is less responsive and less invested in human fodder. And I can see why people who come in from a religious background may be uncomfortable with that idea, because once again, it strips their whole shit apart. Really, it strips their whole shit down, because and not even bring them to a conclusion that's even scary, because you have to confront this sense that, oh my God, bitch, I'm kind of like alone. Really, there's not this overarching presence that cares about my enemies and that's going to avenge me. There's not this overarching presence that is invested in whether, you know, I get that scholarship or whether I make it out the hood, you know, before I'm clipped at 22. You know, there's not, you know, some overarching presence, because this same presence, I'm wanting to make an exception for me, but I'm seeing a pattern exist for my peers and my community members who are dying young and who are not making it out of these systems, who are not winning in life. And so we do have to objectively, maturely ask ourselves, well, how can that make sense then? Why is reality happening in a certain way for some people and not for others? Why is it seemingly some people are being intervened for and other people are being left behind? Why is it that some people's lives look like this, some people's lives look like that? If we're going to also hold together a construct of God that's loving, because I do believe that God is loving, because that's the only thing that I have actually experienced of God personally. But when I have to think about this shit here, I'm like, well, it's possible that my loving God is just having a fantasy experience of this little Earth project. And
This is why. This is why I left the organized church. I left organized religion because it made God too small. Everybody had a word from the Lord. Everybody was saying the Holy Spirit told me, God told me, and everybody lying. Everybody contradicting each other. Like everybody, you got one person saying, God told me to tell you this, or God told me to say this, and then the other one coming back and saying, well, God told me to say this, and they both completely opposite. And I'm like, well, the Bible says God is not the author of confusion, but that is confusion. And it also says that the Holy Spirit is the spirit of truth. And so that he can't lie. God can't lie. And so, and then I told you the most recent ministry I was part of, it was a prophetically, because that's what, you know, I'm more geared toward the prophetic. So it was a prophetic ministry. But the chief leader, he would say, you know, he had a prophecy. He would raise up young people to be prophets, to do what he did, do what he does. And now he would tell them, it's okay if you miss it. Don't worry about it. Like it's okay if you're wrong. And I understand what that was about. Okay, you're taking the anxiety away, like so they can be comfortable, so they won't get so caught up on what if I miss it. I understand that, but at the same time, you always tag it with the Lord said. The Lord said. So whether he said it or not, just say the Lord said. And
extra authority on it.
Yeah, that always rubbed me the wrong way. I just didn't, because you don't know if it's the Lord saying. You're just saying, assuming. But that's what I grew up with. I just got more. I just got closer to it, like when I joined the ministry like that. So I got to see more of the behind the scenes, or how are they operating. But I grew up with that. Everybody and their mama saying, the Lord said this. I was the only person who didn't have a word from the Lord. But I would never play with God's name like that. That was the difference. And God was so personal to them. I was like, wait a minute. And I was just thinking to myself, wait a minute, if God because remember, my view of God started growing. It started getting expanding. And so now everything I'm looking at it through that lens. So like a minister can't come to me and say, the Lord said this, the Lord said that, if it didn't make sense. And if it didn't line up with the grander, like in the grand scheme of things, if it didn't make sense, it wasn't God. To me, it wasn't God. And like when like when a preacher is lying, a line, they're lying, they're talking about God said, you're supposed to give me $1,000, but good and well you don't have $1,000. Like that's a bold faced lie, but they're saying God said it. So it just made me realize people are saying things are God. Most of the things people are saying is not really God anyway. And I even heard a preacher say that on live. He said that on television, Christian television. He said, we need to stop acting like we hear from God as much as we do. And people laughed in the audience, and I just couldn't believe that somebody was actually saying that on Christian that a preacher was actually saying that. But I was glad that he did, and because God is so big, and it's just a fact. If there is a God, if there is a supreme intelligence, He's much bigger than what we're making Him inside of
Well,
religion.
is he also what if he's so big and supreme,
He or she,
or
they are them.
maybe
It.
none of the above? Yeah, it is a better term because all those he, she's, and they, them are all human inventions and constructs.
Yeah, the Bible says in heaven or in the spirit there is no male or female. It says it in the Bible. I think it says in the kingdom, or something like that. I'm kind of rusty on my scriptures because I've been away from
Yeah,
it
even Christ
for a
said
long
that
time.
we would be like the angels in heaven.
Who are not given in marriage? Yeah.
Um, does it scare you to think about the creator being more passive than personal? Is there
On
something
one
that
hand,
bothers you about that angle?
on one hand it does, on one hand it doesn't. The
Hmm.
part that doesn't, it makes sense of it all to me. It
Hmm.
just makes things make more sense that we're dealing with someone who's with a being that's more passive. Um, that's like okay, okay, and I'll tell you on the opposite side. The part that scares me is that yeah, he's not so personal. So he can't really be my friend. He can't really be my father. Like he can't really be any of that for me because he's impersonal. Like and so, but on the other hand, like I said, I would feel better about him.
Can I clarify just a little bit
Go ahead. Go ahead.
about impersonal? So impersonal in the sense that like God isn't attached. Not that God can't be a companion, because you can be a companion and you can love without being someone who's attached to things. Like if you look at a lot of I mean, hell, even look at some of the teachings of Jesus, but definitely a lot of the tenets and characteristics of Buddhism is about having like being a person with a personhood, having a passive experience of reality. Like appreciate the rose, don't pluck it from its root, though. Like afford yourself the experience without having to like offset the ecosystem and take something away from it to do so. Like attachment causes destruction and carnage, and it causes death emotionally, mentally,
Yeah.
physically. Like you can show up and be present and be all that you are in its entirety, and the other thing can be that too. And also, you both can go home at the end of the night.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. And that does make sense. And like I said, it makes it make more sense to me. That's why I said like when they talk about God in a religious context, excuse me, in a religious context, in a church, on a webinar or something, they're talking about, my Father God and the Lord told me. I don't think they're really. I don't think it's really God. I don't think that's talking to them. That's yeah, I just don't believe that. And they're constricted. I think it's very restricted. It's very small. They're dealing with God in a very small way. It's almost like a self-absorbed way. Because these are my personal feelings and thoughts, but I'm just tagging God onto it, so I put more authority on it. So you'll do it if you believe it's God. Just like the man I told you, I left that church because now every time, every Bible study, every church service, they're criticizing the people, browbeating us for not giving enough, and then the chief apostle, the prophet, he's saying, everybody on this live stream give me $1,000. The Lord said, well, hey, I know he ain't talking to me, 'cause, so I know that's not God, because God ain't told you nothing like that about me. And so it just made it more. The more and more I dealt with that, it just made it more real. Talking about real, it just made it more real that they are not real.
Okay, yeah,
That
like, it's easy to accept that people, are fraudulent as hell and all over the place. Yeah.
and so in that sense, yeah, God did seem more impersonal to me because He's letting them get away with that. Like God is not intervening in that. Like He's not. He's just letting them do that. Like he ain't striking them dead. He ain't striking them with cancer or whatever. He just not he's not correcting that. He's letting people do that. He's letting people use his name and abuse his name. And even back in slavery times, these white people, these racists, they would literally leave church, go in the churchyard. They would walk out of church, and they would have them a picnic, hang a ninja picnic, and it was like a party to them. They would watch men, black men and women, be hung from nooses, and they were just fresh out of church. The children were standing there watching with ice cream cones in their hands, and this was all sanctioned to them by the Bible. Like God had sanctioned this; He was okay with this. They didn't see it as evil. Like it was just like, well, I won't even say animals because we don't even do animals that way. But yeah, yeah, I can't even wrap my mind around it, but all I know is that people did all kinds of atrocities in the name of the Lord, in the name of God. And God never stopped them. He never stepped in and stopped them from doing that. And to me, what that tells me is that this supernatural, this supreme intelligence,
Or it's just that people, I guess it also does lead to the same conclusion. So go ahead.
is that God is not as involved in our lives as we think. Like he's not as
And
it's
my
not
question
really
to that is,
personal.
why would God be? Because if I wanted to create an experience of a single cell microorganism and giving it immense potential to be, and I then just wanted to sit back and just observe what would become of it. Why would I be in the business of stopping the unfolding of it all or the expression of it all when I literally created this experience to observe the experience and to allow just that to play out? Is whatever would play out. And we also know that God more than likely probably has a different perception of good and evil, because that good and evil is relative to us. That's also a fairly human creation. We don't even know if God sees good and evil, even recognizes the difference between good and evil. are light and darkness. And even the book that you keep talking about is made by man. Like the Bible wasn't delivered from a UFO. It didn't fall out of the heavens and just appear on the earth. It was created by people. So, I mean, I don't even know what to really say about the Bible either, because the Bible is a man-made construct.
Yeah, it is. It is. And they would have you believe that it just floated down from heaven.
And we know it didn't. It was politicized. It was redacted, revised. It was curated. There were councils involved in stitching what we call the Bible together. It wasn't even initially unified. And even the unified version of the Bible that we got is literally due to people coming together to decide
Yeah, people.
this, and this, and this, and this, and this should all be, and the rest of this shit need to be somewhere else. So, I mean, it's literally couldn't be more man-made. I mean, it's just a product of man. It's a product of man. And of course, God is going to be shaped in the image of man when man is in control of the makings.
Yeah, and you're seeing it.
Emotions and human-like emotions. God is jealous. God is violent. God is territorial. God is angry, and yet God need man to express all that by pillaging and ravaging while also being the same God that can activate a global flood. It doesn't even make any sense.
Right, right. And you're seeing so much of it now in today, with even Trump being the president. All of the racism that has really can't. It's like it's really like trash coming to the surface. That's all it is. Is things coming to the surface. This is nothing new. It's just been hidden all of this time, and it's just
And
it's
really,
being it's been hidden, and somebody came along, agent of chaos came along and made people feel comfortable. Now you can come out wherever you are, and people are emboldened. People feel like they can finally be their evil selves. They can let all their animalistic, barbaric instincts just run wild. And they're using the Bible to justify all of it. All of it. They're using the Bible to justify it.
and because the Bible is such a mixed bag of nuts, they really could have been using the Bible equally to justify their kindness and their love, which all those justifications are there too.
Right. That's the problem. That's the problem with religion. That is the problem with religion. There is so many, because it's man-made concepts. There's so many
I don't even think that
contradictions.
that's I don't even think that religion is a problem. The people who are cosplaying as Christians know that they're cosplaying. I don't think that it's a matter of people being confused about what applies and doesn't apply, because they all are agreeing that Christ is their Lord and Savior. And Christ lived, spoke, died, and rose again to legitimize the truth he spoke and lived. So these people know damn well who they should be following. But they didn't come into Christianity to follow anything. Christian is just a costume for their patriarchy, their sexism, their queerphobia, and their authoritarian nature. And they use the convenience of religion in order to be the way that they are, because to our point, religion has enough going on. It's slinging a incongruent message in such a way that it allows for people to justify their evil and their inhumanity toward other people, because you can just say, let me set Jesus aside, baby. Let's preach from that Leviticus today. Or you can say, let's put that Leviticus aside to preach Jesus today, depending on where your humanity is. Everybody who's in Christianity already has a personal humanity. They're aligning with the part of Christianity that mirrors their humanity.
Absolutely.
That's what's happening, but nobody is confused. People are just aligning intentionally with the parts of the Bible that are a reflection of their personal humanity, whatever the fuck that humanity is. And they are cherry picking through the scriptures, even though there is only one authority who said, I know that you have heard it say, but I say unto you, do good to those who do evil unto you. I know you have heard it said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. And despite there being a central authority and one person coming in through the veil, through the history to say, fuck all that, let me straighten this out for y'all. This is what it is. And then live that shit and have it legitimized in such a way that it resulted in his resurrection, but still didn't even result in Luke, Mark, Paul, Mary, John, and their resurrections. They still in the ground. Christ is not. So literally, Christians are supposed to be following out Christ. There's only one person who perfectly lived and perfectly died, which is why he perfectly rose, because his message was completely congruent from top to bottom. Everybody else who doing this shit, not that they're bad people, but people go into spaces and align with the rules that are a reflection of their ethics and their morality.
Yeah, that's all it is, and that's why I couldn't do Christianity anymore. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the church. Couldn't do Christians. Nothing. I just can't do religion anymore at all.
So back to God then. God.
Mm-hmm.
So what now? Since you are trying to figure out who is God.
I think I'm going to figure that out outside of religion for one, but I'm still on the journey. I have not come to a conclusion. But this is how I think of it. I think of a video game, and kind of like you were mentioning Mortal Kombat earlier. I'll just give an example. Okay, so you have, and whether it's Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, or Double Dragon, my thing was fighting games. I like fighting games growing up.
Me too.
So you have avatars. You have these characters that you put into the game. You have Katana, Scorpion, Sub-Zero. Now the programmers, the game program, because you got programmers, you got developers, you got designers, you got a whole crew that works on. So you got a whole you got minds together. You got different minds together. But it's almost like I think of in the Bible when it says, "Let us make man in our own image." So it wasn't just one person. Let us make man, and so it's the same person, different functions. So a video game company is the same company, different developers. I mean, different people working on that same IP. And so you have characters, and so you have Katana, you have Baraka, or if it's Street Fighter, you have Ryu and Ken. And the programmers they gave them special moves. So they have limitations. These characters have limitations, but they also have abilities. So you know exactly what their abilities are, you know exactly what their limitations are. And then there's the balancing phase where you have to balance out, because you can't have a character being way too strong and compare it to the other characters. This has to be like, because you're gonna have your friends over. There's gonna be multiple people playing these games, like 2 players, 3 player, 4 player. And so they have to balance out the game. They have to go out, balance these characters, move sets out, and everything. And then they draw out the story. So what's gonna happen? So the game writer, the game developers, designers, they know the end already before they even program the game. So they've already gone to the drawing board. They make out the whole story, where these characters fit in the story. And so when we buy the game and then we play the game, we're controlling these characters. We have complete control of these characters. Like what makes it so fun. Is like, okay, down up, forward is fireball. And if you put in certain combinations, and then you make these characters. So, and this is like So you start to feel like you are these characters. Like you are what's that word? I'm looking for the word.
Well,
Um, vicarious. So you're living vicariously through these characters. You know it's a fantasy. You know this isn't real. But if you lose the game, you get beat, you're gonna be pissed. So you experience a very real emotion based off of something that is not real. And there's this final boss, and when you beat the final boss, you get an end credit or excuse me, an ending story, ending scene. But that game is always there. That video game is always somewhere sitting on your shelf, whether you're playing it or not. It's there, and the characters are there. The characters are controllable, whether you use them or not. Somebody's going to use them. But the way I think about life is that in the context of God, how God is interacting with us is He's already programmed us, and we are avatars, and we have the controllers in our hands, but we still have limitations. We have abilities, but we also have limitations. Now, how we use these abilities, how we use these limitations, we are the ones with the controller, but God is the programmer. God is the designer. He's already written the story. So he really does know the end from the beginning. Now, how we maneuver, how we move through this story and this simulation, it's up to us. But the story is still going to end the same way. The bigger story.
mm-hmm.
Now, which characters we're going to be, that's up to us. There's sub stories. There's stories inside of the story, but the bigger story is already written. And so that's how I kind of am seeing this whole life, spirituality, all of it. That's how I'm looking at it. It's like the only free will we have is what we can do with the controller. That's the only free will we have. How good are we at the game? How many cheat codes do we know? But at the end of the day, that story at the end is still going to be the same because it's already written. And so we're just avatars. We're just players in God's game. It's his game. And I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know. It
There's
is
only one way that the Buddhists say there is to feel, and that is really to actually overcome the feeling and just accept and let go. That's the whole point of letting go. It's because you're not in control. You can influence, but you're not in control. And ultimately, the credits are going to roll how they're going to roll. So throw your hands up and let go, because it doesn't matter. It don't even matter if you don't even know how to feel. It don't even matter if you're mad about that. It don't even matter if you have anxiety about that. It doesn't even matter if it's there. So the only logical position to take is to just let go. To just find your emotional spot in all of this that allows for you to be happy.
Yeah.
So that at least you're not a paranoid schizophrenic the whole time that the inevitable is playing out. So, but ultimately to let go, to free yourself, because that is the ultimate awakening, is that I'm a part of a larger picture and there are inevitables. And there's also a way to enjoy this without fear, without anger, and to work toward that. Like, okay, life is lifing. I'm going to listen for my intuition, follow the synchronicities out, come to try to understand what my role is in what is, and leave a lot of room to let go and let God, because that's ultimately what is the ising of it is God.
So I guess the only thing that is left to do is just to play the game to the best of our ability, learn the move sets, become really good at the game, and learn how to beat the villain. So
I'll tell you,
you're on the right part of the story. You're at the right part
and
of
the
the
villain
story.
itself, like the villain itself, like the villain
Mm,
is us. The villain is our shadow side.
yes.
Like the
Yes.
only reason we're experiencing other people's evil is because they did not overcome the enemy in them, which makes them an enemy, so-called
Right.
everybody else. So everybody just needs to overcome themselves. This is all about overcoming self and transcending. And
Me versus me.
that's what I'm learning how to do, is to just be child. Just be child. I even try to worry. I try to distance myself at this point from developing like emotional narratives and just work on acceptance more so than anything else. Acceptance. And what is in my control, which is me, that's what I put my larger focus on. And then everything else just becomes a matter of like, does this thing or person amplify my attention to myself and my relationship to myself and where I'm trying to go with myself, or do they distract? And then that decides who comes and who goes. That also decides what experiences I keep and don't keep. Do I keep the distractions, or do I keep the things that amplify where I'm going? And not painting so many emotional narratives really does help one to feel a lot lighter. A
Yeah. Yeah.
lot lighter. I really had no idea how much weight came with developing and holding on to so many narratives. It's like, girl, it
Yes.
doesn't matter. Like, I just need to work on being a bad bitch and living my life. Like,
Yeah, I did that too because I had such a heavy pain body, and I used to take every single little thing
and you
personally.
told yourself a story about every single thing that
Yes.
happened, came with a story.
Yep.
Um,
And the more I like, the better I started to feel about myself, and the more I learned myself, learn what my triggers are, what like where these triggers were coming from, the more I was able to love myself. And the
yeah.
more I loved myself, the less all these things that I used to let bother me, I
Mm-hmm.
stopped taking them so personally because it wasn't about me. Like,
Right.
like that ain't even about me. That's about that person,
Yep.
you know. And the reason I was experiencing what they're doing, the reason I'm experiencing it, the reason it's so heavy is because I'm heavy, because I'm carrying around all this baggage. Like Erica Badu, bag lady, you gonna hurt your back
And
carrying
it
all them bags like that. So the more bags I started to unload, like you said, the lighter I started to feel, and the less these things bothered me,
yep.
less personally I took them. And when that happens, the more fun you can have in life, you know.
Yeah. Let other people's stuff belong to them. Let other people be responsible for themselves and their actions. That doesn't always have to be about us, and is not about us. People project and people give you their condition. So that's all it is. And we made the mistake of identifying people's condition with our self-worth and connecting ourselves to how we were treated. Like, that had nothing to do with me, child. That's your immaturity, your narcissism,
Hmm.
your foolishness, your brokenness, your whatever, 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 whatever. But I got to get out of here. And for somebody who was only supposed to be here for 30 minutes, we have been here for 2 hours and 30 minutes.
I see that. 2 hours
Almost
and 40 minutes.
30 minutes to almost 3 hours. My God, today. Riveting conversation. And I'm actually happy for you because I watched your journey of traveling through religion and ideology, and I'm glad that you're getting some relief, and I'm glad that you're applying some critical thought. They have a saying that when a student is decided, then finally a teacher can arise. So the fact that you are forming new thoughts, new questions, it opens you up to different answers and different responses from the system to those things. And
Yeah.
as long as you're on that journey of finding yourself and seeking the truth to show up, it always does. So
I
go to
believe it.
sleep and get your fucking rest.
Absolutely.
And thank you for sharing. And we will revisit this conversation in the future.
All right. Thank you for having me, and be
Thank
interested in hearing what the audience, what the
you.
comments have to say. I would have
Yes.
loved for there to be a whole panel
And you know they're going to
of
say.
people.
You know they're going
Right.
to chat,
You know
chat.
they're gonna say. All right. Well, I'm gonna go to bed and go into my other simulation, and wake up into another one. So,
Yes, a dream within a dream.
dream within a dream.
All right, bye.
All right.
That's one of my good friends, y'all. We talk for hours and go down this rabbit hole all the fucking time. I got to get out of here. We got to come back and get into Cat Williams being exposed by his brother girl. Get into some low density content. Thumbs up the video. Share. And I'm going to be coming back, and I'm going to get you guys to sound off if y'all believe these allegations from Cat Williams' brother girl. This is a whole hot diggity mess, child. So stay by your computers, and I will see you guys in 5. Thumbs up the video, share. If you enjoyed the stuff, you already know what to do here, child. Cash App, thumbs up, all that good jazz. PayPal, all information is in the description box below. Share, and get into the thing, child. Good night.